Hi, guys.
Hey there.
All right. So there's Jess working to get in now. We'll let her come into the party with us. So we are live on Facebook. This is our third Millionaire Real Estate Investor Book Club session. Can you believe it? We're more than halfway through this monster book.
It is a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hey,
A lot of
Jess.
knowledge in here.
Especially now that Jess just showed up.
Yeah. She is here and ready to rock. So we will. Are you having lunch or what's going on?
I have sushi in my teeth.
Wow.
I ate it in the car coming back from an appointment.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't
Was
had-
it an investor appointment? Because that's what we want to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Tony, you look so nice and dark.
Thank you. I'm tan. I live in Florida.
I hate you.
No,
All right.
I just moved offices, so
Well, let's get. Oh, you're out of the little cubicle spot that you had.
I
been
am.
in?
I took a window office, so yeah,
Moving on up.
it's a
Nice
big deal.
nice piece of real estate there.
Yeah, I had to make a trade and negotiate it. It was awesome. Worked it out.
Well, we've all been working through the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. We are now in the Own a Million section. That starts at page 253. We only had about 50 pages to read this week. What did you guys think about it? What was your overall ahas? And
This was my favorite section.
oh yeah, tell us about that.
Also because it was short.
That can have something to do with it.
Short reading.
Yep. Kept my attention span.
Awesome. Anyone else?
No.
Well, I'll give you. Yesterday I was at a leadership, a regional leadership conference, and Dave Jenkins was there. So it was pretty cool to hear him talk a lot about this book. And he said, really, the first 150 pages were, and he's like, I don't know if Gary's said this really out loud to anyone besides me, but really the first 150 pages of this book was designed for his son as a blueprint to, how to invest. And I'd never really put that together.
Gary's son or Dave?
No, Gary's son.
Gotcha.
And then, so when they were writing it, the first 150 pages, he really kind of already had the idea and the general, and then they added to the book and then decided to create the blueprint, for investing. So thought that was pretty cool insight.
Yeah.
I just want to say this is so rudimentary and small. The part on 292 to me that was huge was just because I like to keep my money in a mattress, basically.
Yeah.
Talking about dead money, safe money, healthy and wealthy money. I know I like keeping stuff in savings accounts. I do have a ton in investments and whatnot. But after reading that, I was like, that's it. I called my financial planner and said, okay, start all the accounts just so that I can move my capital and my tax account from the normal bank account. And I'm going there today after this.
Oh, cool. Get into
I love
action.
Yeah, I just love it because no matter what action you're taking, just by reading this and doing these activities together, I mean, we're expanding our minds in some ways. For example, Brittany on my team, I think it's public knowledge, I can share this. Her and her family had been looking to buy some land, and that didn't work out. Then they found a house they love, and they were going to put their house on the market. And I said, well, you have to sell your home, your current home, because I know it's in a price point that could be a great rental property. And she was like, well, we don't have to sell it. Is there tons of equity you just have to buy this next place? Well, no. I said, okay, well, pause for a second and let's think through this. And then later on, she had a conversation with her coach, and the coach confirmed it. We'll make a great rental property. And she's like, I just want to thank you because we just continue to play small, play the short game. And this will just start building our wealth. So I just thought that was cool. Now, I haven't gotten there yet to where I'm at that place to do that, but I got to share that with someone. I thought that was awesome.
I think your first property, a lot of times, I tell people all the time, I think I said this in the first deal, like if I wasn't I wasn't married and didn't have kids, like if I was single, I would buy a duplex and live on one side and rent the other and literally own it for a year and do that as many times as I could.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times people feel like they need the equity out of their first property to buy their second property. And really at the end of the day, if you're a first time home buyer, your first property is probably your best investment property. I mean, like the most obvious, but I don't think people think of it like that because they haven't talked to a lender that's like looks at things like a financial advisor, like the whole map of here's everything. Like, why don't you keep this property? They go, oh, you're going to sell this, and then here's your rate, and here's how much equity you'll have to put down. They don't even really go through the idea of
Keeping it
as an option. Yeah, and so one of the things not really related to investment, and I mean investment, but like real estate investment, reading this book, and I think I text you guys, I have been like, I was just sitting on my sofa the other night and I was like, I saw a commercial for a cell phone or whatever. And so like I saved, just by making a phone call that took me 10 minutes, I saved $50 a month off my phone bill. Like, when's the last time you checked that, or your insurance? Or, I looked at a couple of my tax and investment accounts that Jess and I were talking about. It's like, I can make about $5,000 a month. I mean, $5,000 a year off of two of my accounts in particular. Yep. that are like just sitting there with money because one's a tax account and it sits there at least quarterly. Yeah. And so I can make an extra about 2% instead of like 0.1% or whatever the typical checking account has. Mm-hmm. And so like, that's an extra 10 grand a year for two accounts. And so I'm starting to go through all of that stuff, like kind of auditing. And I do this for my credit card. Every year I just kind of chop it up and make people have to call me and see if those are things that I actually need. So that doesn't really have to do with this book, but it kind of does, because more money gives me more ability to do things.
Well, it totally does. You're holding your money accountable, and instead of having dead money, like they said, you're creating money that becomes safe, because then you put it into a different vehicle, getting that money back with a higher interest rate. Then you can set it into a separate account that when you have the money that you want, you put it into an investment property. Yeah. It's a win-win. And then the income you get from that investment property, instead of putting it anywhere else, put it into another investment vehicle until you build up enough and buy another one.
Yeah. I just think it makes me realize, like, I think once a year we can slow down enough to like look at all of our, not even major things. Like, we have to have a cell phone, but saving that's $600 a year. Like, if I can do that on 10 things, it's like, all right, well, that'll help me buy another property.
Well, this is a great time of year to be reviewing all that, because you're setting up your next year's budget and goal planning. And besides whatever your gross commission needs to be, right? We're all switching our mindset to our profit instead. And how much are we spending? Like Josh said, I mean, mine comes naturally because my credit card account just keeps getting hacked. So that's one way to have people reach out to you.
Yeah.
So that's one way of doing it. But I love it because at the beginning of this section in the summary, it says buy and hold is the best way to accelerate your equity buildup.
Yeah.
So,
I think a lot of people don't want to buy and hold because it's really not very sexy. Yep. So like, I'd rather flip a house and make that immediate $100,000. And it's like, if you can make $100,000 on a flip, that's awesome. Like, all the flips I've ever done, I've made money and then use that to buy and hold. So that's fine to do. But I think that if you can make $100,000 flipping a property, you can also hold it for a couple of years and then still make $100,000 on.
Yeah.
So hold it for 2 years, don't pay the capital gains on it, and then do it again.
Yeah, I think it's the instant gratification that everyone wants, but I like the hold, improve, strategy out of all strategies, to maximize the rent as much as possible. I like the section or the idea of doing your lease where it's an automatic increase the first year, based on, given the right product, right, where you have something that's a little better than the neighborhood it's in as far as quality, and then over improve it to max out the rents. I really like that idea, and that one got me excited out of all of the different options.
I thought it was great too when they did. I love that because I haven't written that in there unless I've done a 2-year lease. Then I write it in, and it's only usually for the following year, but not each additional. But I also liked in there where they said, hey, write in that there's a home warranty and that the tenant pays for the deductible. I was like, that is the coolest idea. I didn't even think about that.
I like that one too, Jess. That I was going to mention that one too, because I just
There were a
think
lot of
that,
good, there were a lot of good terms in there.
yeah,
One of the things that we kind of, I think we probably all read, which is interesting with regard to investing in real estate, is like, and Jenny, I think you sent this text. So sometimes life feels amazing and sometimes it feels like a maze. And I think the reason most people don't get started is because there's so much misinformation. It's so overwhelming. It's not something we do regularly. And even if you're buying an inexpensive property, pretty much no matter what market you're in, you're probably going to spend $50,000 to $100,000, like on the very low end.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of money. That's not like going to Walmart and buying, $100 worth of groceries or whatever it is. And so I think that it's like freaks people out and they have analysis paralysis and they never actually do anything with this. They have good intentions, or they go buy, like, oh, I'll go buy the Carlton Sheets books or whatever, some late night infomercial. And then they can't figure out how to get started.
What I love about that whole maze, the labyrinth story that the chapter starts with, is that if you keep going into that, you realize that all of the paths get you to the middle. It's just which one are you going to take, which I think obviously is the metaphor for investing, right? Like, buying something, it can still be a good investment. It just may take longer, or your terms may not be the best. So I just appreciate that. I also loved pick a niche to get rich.
Yeah. I wrote down on 256, in the second paragraph, they talked about how a lot of these investors got bored and that they wish they had stayed with what was working. And I think that goes with our businesses too. Like, as realtors, we want to find the shiny object, and coming in and like having a very structured time block day is not fun or sexy. But I think that kind of slapped me across the face like 3 or 4 years ago. And Gary was talking and he said, success is boring. And I was like, oh God, really? Thank you for mentioning that, because I was kind of at a point where I was like, there's got to be something different I can do in my business. Like, I'm doing the same thing every single day, but it had been working for the last, 8 or 9 years. But it's like kind of boring. And I think they constantly like figure out something that they can do different.
well, the path to mastery is boring, right? I mean, if you're on that path and you've got 10,000 hours in, or a lot, or a substantial amount, it does start getting boring. And I think that's when people start trying to come up with a different plan, like you said. And I like on 256 too, Josh, there's a quote by Peggy Rollins: don't try to do everything at once because it gets overwhelming. I don't think you can be good at it all. You have to choose. And that goes back to exactly what you just said and what you said before of, you've got to figure out your path and then stick to the plan and execute it. And it's not sexy whatsoever. Any of the holding is just not, right? So,
It is sexy? Being able
Money.
to deposit money in the bank. Long romantic walks.
I love those.
long romantic walks to the bank.
So
I
So
thought
Josh,
important on page 293, the last paragraph was
Oh, you're
like,
skipping so far ahead.
that's
But-
way ahead.
it's not, listen, even if skipping ahead, you guys are going all over. This is just
No,
important.
we're actually on page
256.
We're in order, but go ahead. Good Lord.
So keep track of what's happening with your money. Know what
Hi,
condition
squirrel.
it's in and how well it's being paid. You need to keep track of your ROI for each of your properties and for your entire portfolio. The annual return you're receiving on your money that you've invested, your return on your investment. And then I thought it was really prudent with track the annual return you're receiving on your equity as well. So keeping track of all those things, I didn't think of doing that to see the return on equity. And I love the exercises they did to show that. So I think with each one of my properties, I'll be creating that as well.
Yeah, and this was the section where they were like, okay, we're going to go deep on all these different numbers. And so, Josh, you were asking for, in the book on page 265, he talks about, I recommend you master the terms worksheet, buy and hold. Well, it's not actually called that. So I did some research, and the property analysis worksheet is the same data. So that is the one that I did share in the
Yeah, that's
file.
an,
So it's the same document, just has a different name because I went looking for that. So along with that worksheet though, Jess, is later on that interest rate tab as well. So all
Okay.
of these different tabs are inside of that form that you can find on KW Connect.
Okay.
What
I
else?
think you can go to, if you can get to 257 or part of 256 and just kind of like the 17 issues of Own a Million, like, I guess that's kind of the frame for the rest of this, but really those 5 principal areas, like if you can start getting comfortable with those things, I mentioned in the first call that we did, like everybody needs to know their formula or their parameters. I think that's the one thing that I learned early on just from working with other investors that were like, they would waffle back and forth on what their parameters were. They were willing to like compromise on it. And I think that if you compromise, like every compromised deal has been a mess. And so like if you can figure out what that criteria is, and I really loved like later on, like 10 or 12 pages, they were just talking about building in like the 10% increase and just some good stuff. I think a 10% increase is
Yeah.
over year is a lot, but if you say, hey, I'm only going to actually increase it 5%, then your tenants are really happy. And so
I think what I learned from different investor clients over the years is that we're smart and we understand how contracts work. And we know that there are inspection clauses or financing addendums, whatever it is inside of a contract. So I think that I don't know, it's later on in this section where he says that know that you can get out of these deals. If you already know your criteria, you know that it fits your terms and what you're looking for, make an offer fast, sight unseen if need be.
lock it up. You always have terms in there that can, yeah, you just lock it up as quickly as possible. And then you've got terms in there like inspections and appraisals. And, you know, you can even use things like, oh, my business partner, you know, needs to see the property. Well, they don't have to know that your business partner is your dog, whatever. I don't know. So, I mean, it could literally, like, that's where you're going to make opportunities, is knowing the market well enough to be able to jump on something, tie it up, and make them happy by giving them the price that they want. And then you win also by going in and say, hey, this doesn't make sense. I need $20,000 off the price because X, Y, and Z inspection items or whatever it is.
Yeah, here's the criteria. He says you know that you can escape through different clauses based on condition, an inspection, results of feasibility study, based on financing, based on repairs, based on other party approval. So there you go.
The same thing we do for our clients.
Yeah, it's all the same, what we do every day, right? So for us, for me, I think when I've worked with a lot of investors in the past, so when I think of like the most successful ones, it comes back to criteria and them knowing their strategy like really, really well. And my top client that's been an investor bought 36 and sold 36 with us. So they are a good example of that. They just know exactly what they want to do. They have a fix and hold strategy. They did it for 10 years. What's that?
It either works or it doesn't. Like every one of their deals, it's really easy to work with those people because they know exactly what they want. Whereas even with traditional real estate, we have clients that come into Nashville and they go, well, we want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Nashville. Oh, in Middleton, really? That only narrows it down to 17,000 properties. Like, but once you have somebody that knows like, hey, don't call me unless you find something on these 3 streets. Okay, cool. Awesome. Like that makes it really simple. I mean, it doesn't make it easy. It just simplifies, like, you know exactly where you stand with those people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd have to talk them out of certain deals because they wouldn't go see many of them. And then I was like, this is a lot of work, like, you know, because they did the work themselves. And I said, you know, I think we could get a different property for you that just wouldn't be quite as much work to get it ready to rent. And, you know, having that rapport to be able to bounce ideas off each other is really, really critical. Anyway.
I highlighted
Go ahead.
I highlighted on 271, just kind of a couple of sentences, offer them what they want and then ask for what you want, which I think is good. And I think we know that from being in the business. I really liked great negotiators or great investigators.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Negotiate, yeah, and negotiate everything.
No.
I love the diagram that
Hear
they
you.
showed on 262 with, when they're talking about thinking in units and how the costs go down basically because of the property managers and everything like that. It was, I'm a visual person, so I love when they do that kind of stuff because it makes it very clear to me to actually see it. Helps.
To
Well, and
Josh
then
Freeze, look at his face.
But then the vacancy rates, with that specific piece, I think the vacancy rates are pretty awesome when you think of like one building. If you have an apartment complex, Josh, you have an apartment complex, and only you have 20 of them, and one is not rented. It's not the end of the world. Whereas the
Right.
single family house, why does Josh keep doing that to me? I'm just Josh. What's the problem here? You don't like him? You don't like what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Oh, wah.
Jess, I was actually going to say that same chart on 262, and I was going to ask you guys. I know you and Josh both have different single family and multifamily. I don't know if Tony has any investment properties right now. But so whenever he's saying, and know your niche, it seems that your niche can also be a blend of different kind of properties if needed.
Yeah, so the reason I have the single family, that was our first home. And so we kept that, and actually that home, John and I plan to move back to someday, although it brings such a great rental income. We make $1,000 a month on it. So for us, that's pretty decent. And
It's
we
really
only
good.
owe a couple years left on the mortgage. It's very
What do you buy that for, Jess?
We bought it for $250. We put, I'll tell you, we bought it for $250. We put $50,000 down. We had, and we bought in 2007. 2005 was that one, sorry. And we put $50,000 down. It was kind of close to the height of the market here. And I refinanced it from a 30-year to a 15-year loan. And so we have minimal years left. I've always paid about $250 a month extra on the principal too. So it was great. And we've paid it off obviously a lot faster on top of that, which is awesome, but we make $1,000 a month on it. So that's a win. And then on the 4-family, I actually own that one with my brother. So maybe we'll buy him out one day. We end up doing most of the work on it. He had initially, and we bought that with him because he was a first-time home buyer. He lived in the unit. So we got a crazy low interest rate. That was the plan. And then he moved out.
So what's your first property rent for? The one for 250, what's the rent on it?
2,400.
Okay. So it's almost like the 1% rule, but then you did a refi to 15-year versus 30.
But it's 1,800 square feet.
Okay.
4-bed.
Yeah,
2
I'm
bath.
just curious, but with the 1% rule, how that applied on that property. So
Well, here's this. So then think about this. So the one we bought, and we overpaid because we bought in 2007. We definitely overpaid for it on the 4-family that we own.
sure.
But we get $875 a unit on it, and 2 units are total profit on the
Cool.
4-family.
That's awesome.
So that's pretty decent.
That's great.
And what we did, we went up because we had 2 tenants that were in there forever. One was like 19 years, one was 9 years. So we just went up, and what we did for work on it this summer, we went up by $500 a month on rents.
Yeah. Well, and for those that may not know, the 1% rule, if you buy a property for 250,000, that at 1% it'd be 2,500. And that's just a general rule that people and investors try to, if you hear 1% rule, that's what they're talking about. And in some cases in this book, what they're talking about, 0.8% and works pretty well for most people as well. So anyway, quick math in case you guys didn't know that.
That's what they want to get in the rental amount. That doesn't necessarily mean though that that's what your profit is. So
Exactly.
yeah, keep that in mind. So that's the rental amount. Ideally, in the hold book, I think they tell us that if you can get a $200 a month profit, that's one of the small litmus tests that they'd like to see you do. So that was kind of always what I was thinking, was at least a minimum of $200 a month. to get per
Too many
unit.
variables on that though. Like it
Of course there
depends
are.
on, yeah. I mean, the 1% rule is awesome, but you can't get that 1% rule in LA or New York or
Right.
parts of New York. So it just depends on the city and how big the city is and what the rents are.
Yeah.
You can in Tampa and Orlando, just so you all know.
And Nashville, but yeah, it's getting harder by the minute.
Well, and if you guys also look, so like when you have your criteria, so my criteria doesn't change in the form of utilities, Jenny. So for us, I wanted to have public utilities because we have septic or well as an option here. So public utilities was big, public water and public sewer, because it's less costly if there's something that goes wrong. And quite frankly, tenants don't know how to use things correctly. So with a septic system, that could really, the bed. So I'd rather not have to deal with that with tenants. We wanted to have electric individually per the 4 units, because then they could have electric heat, they could have electric utilities. We're not paying for furnaces then, and pipes freeze in the winter. So we'd rather not pay for furnaces if we could help that stuff too. So that was one of the things for the multis.
Sure.
Hey, Josh, what we're talking about is on page 262 when you froze up and we all got good pictures of your face.
I
We'll send
think
those.
you're the only one that does that. It's just weird. And I knew for about 20 seconds and then it just like cut off.
So we were talking, and this relates to you as well. I was asking Jess, so you guys know that, remember we talked about having your niche to get rich, and then also it is good to vary your properties from single family to do multifamily. So that's just kind of the section we're talking about here, is having a variation.
Well,
have a little bit of each, but once you have multifamily, it's really hard to go back to single family. Like I get the whole, it appreciates more, but and I didn't realize I was doing it. And when I was reading this, I was like, ooh, I'm really smart. Not really.
Yeah, I mean, it says, yeah, the consolidation of units under one roof, so to speak, saves on all these different costs involved with.
That was huge. I'd never thought about that before. So,
well, I think the idea for me was my first properties, I own a couple of single family, but not, it's always pretty much been duplex, triplex, quadplex. And then I had an opportunity to buy a 22 unit with a business partner. And now that I did that, I've bought 3 in the last year and a half. And I just don't think I would go back to buying, like if it was a really great deal, I'd buy a duplex or a triplex, but it's.
So this goes into the talent. So who manages all that for you? And that's actually toward the end of this section, which I love. Gary always brings it back to top grading for talent and behavioral style.
I have a property manager on all of it, and they're awesome. But I will say, with the idea that if I have 1 or 2 more, I could look at just hiring an in-house property management company that just does our stuff, and then hopefully have that person have the idea that they want to grow the business and have some kind of profit share or something like that, because it would help our traditional, residential business anyway. But I just know how much money I pay in property management, even with discounted rates that we've negotiated. It would be hard to, that was loud. It would be hard to go back and, I don't know, eventually once you get 30 doors, why wouldn't you have a property management?
yeah. So Josh, talk to us about why, like just a few advantages on that. And I think that's important to point them out, like for multifamily versus single family.
The initial reason that I did it was kind of what it said in the book, as far as like a duplex. The idea, I always kind of felt like, well, if I don't have my single family property rented, I'm just on the hook, like altogether. Somebody's got to pay the mortgage. And if I had a duplex and I had one side rented, one side vacant, I was still probably paying pretty much the mortgage with that, or close to it. And so it just kind of like minimized my risks. And I think the other piece with apartments, I just think it's kind of like comparing it to going to Sam's or Costco versus going to Walmart or Target. Like you buy in bulk, you are buying the doors less expensively. But there's a lot of people that once you get over $1 million, there's probably a lot of investors that can't or don't feel comfortable buying a 16 or 20 unit apartment complex.
Well, but it's still, as far as, if you're going to finance that, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but it still becomes putting the deal together, right? Like this is what each unit would get. This is the overall picture. And I think that's a misconception. It's more about that than almost qualifications. It's more about like the criteria of like what you're actually going to make per unit. Is that correct? Because that's what really the book talks about. I have not bought a multifamily, so I was just curious.
I think it's that. I think it's the type of loan that we've done on the last 3 apartments. Like we can't get that loan on any other investment property deal. So it's the terms, it's the criteria. It's yeah. So like on the loan, it's a Freddie Mac loan. It's a it's interest only for 3 years, and then it's also non-recourse. So interest only for 3 years. People go, why would you want to do interest only for 3 years on an apartment complex that might have some CapEx, like capital expenditures? It gives you 3 years to like put money into the building to stabilize it and get it, up, so you're not paying as much
At a reduced rate.
Yeah. So you might have to put $100,000 in it in the first 12 or 18 months, which sounds like a ton of money, but then you can go in and rent it for more, and then it's stabilized. When you own a 30-unit apartment complex, eventually you have to buy 30 water heaters, 30 window units, 30 HVACs.
Yeah.
The building I have that's 30 units, it's 3 buildings. So it's 3 roofs. And yeah, so it's a big amount of everything.
That just sounds to me, just you saying that, overwhelming. So how's your mindset not go there?
You have to have a really good home inspector that is like well-versed in that. And that's where we go in and renegotiate when we realize, we thought we were going to have to do, maybe $5,000 a unit, not $12,000 a unit. So
Sure.
It's what we always talk about, like having the team and having the talent, but it's like having a great property manager that can go in and do like 3 or 4 quotes that can potentially like negotiate something down for us. So, it's in their best interest also to get a better deal, because they know we're going to be happier, and then they're going to increase the rents and they're going to make more money on the property management.
So talk to us about the depreciation of the multi-units. I know we've talked about that in the past, just on the tax advantages.
I don't have it all in front of me, but when you get into apartments, the reason like higher net worth are buying apartments, there's a lot more depreciation. You can accelerate the depreciation in a lot faster time.
Yeah.
You can do it in like, I don't know what it is. It's like 27 and a half years. You can depreciate it way faster. So there's an accelerated depreciation, write it off on your taxes. You just do it. There's a lot more advantage to the volume of business.
Yeah.
I was actually going to go to that section, which is page 98, what the issue 13, minimizing your tax exposure. I know we talked about it on another book club session. Maybe someone's watching this one that didn't get to. I love this. The government wants you to pay what you owe, but gives you many ways to not pay, at least not right away. It's really saying, we will charge you less if you do these things. So look at it another way. It's saying, we will invest in you if you do what we want you to do. So Josh, you shared that you talked with that lady, the 1031 exchange.
We did too.
Yeah.
We just had her as a guest speaker, and it was awesome. Like, and to have her be able to explain anything to a client is such an advantage. And I learned a couple things that I didn't know. I thought I knew a lot about 1031, and it was pretty cool to have her. So thanks for the referral, Josh. She was awesome.
Yeah, pretty boring information until
Yeah.
It's just really dry information. I did an hour webinar with her, and she's also come into physically come into our office when she was in Nashville, and the team really enjoyed it. It's not like super sexy information, but if you're working with investors or you're doing it yourself, even if you're wanting to do a 1031 on a beach property, Jess, you can do that.
I know, I love that.
It's pretty awesome. Like the stipulations on it on the beach property is pretty awesome. You only have to rent it for like 20 days out of the year for the first 2 years, and then you don't have to rent it ever again if you don't want to.
So you guys will rent it, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, we can do a mastermind there.
Perfect.
Wow. Yeah.
New mastermind spot. Sounds like I need to get to work.
Come on, Tony.
Tony.
So yeah, the 1031, just a couple things that I think are worth pointing out. You have to file for it 45 days before closing, and then you have up to 180 days after to, transfer it to another property. So,
Well, you have 45 days to identify it after closing and 180 days to close on it.
that's what it is. Yeah. 45 after. Yeah.
And you can identify, like, depending on what it is, you can identify up to 3 or 5 properties.
Yeah. And you have to do it
don't
before
have to
closing too.
Yes. Well,
File it.
I think you have to provide at least one before closing, and then you have that 45 days to identify the rest. And they might not be for sale
Yeah.
currently, but you have 180 days to close on. That's why they give you an option to have like 5 properties.
Yeah.
'Cause 4 of them might not be for sale, and they might not be able to close in 180 days.
But to
And-
go to 1031, you have to actually be selling one of your properties in order to buy.
Just not your
Perfect.
primary residence.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it can
so
be an
you-
investment property, it could be a farm, and when they say like kind, it doesn't mean like kind like duplex for duplex. It could be farm for beach house, it could be farm for commercial land, it could
So
be dental.
Basically, I need to buy a house and sit on it so that I'm willing to sell it to then put it into a 1031 exchange for a beach house.
Mhm.
Because the houses I have right now, I make money on, I don't want to sell them.
You could even sell your current, I mean, you could take your current primary residence and turn it into an investment property and then sell it.
It's
Or
what it's like.
1031. There's a lot of good things. They're also the lady that's doing that I put you guys in touch with on the 1031. They're doing a lot of they have like a MLS basically for commercial properties, which is pretty cool. It's called Eagle something, I don't know. Anyway, it's really cool because they have like a database of properties that you can 1031 it into in other cities around the country.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And it could be anywhere in the country too,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
Yeah. So if anyone wants her information, Josh, reach out to Josh and he'll get it over to you, because it was definitely worth our team's time. And another thing is, one aha our team had after is, all our traditional clients that are buying and selling, why are we not giving them this book, right? And why are we not saying, hey, let's get some wealth created for yourself by buying your first investment property in the next 12 months. Read the book, figure out your criteria, get back to us, and then we'll do 1030. Then they can do a 1031 on their initial one and, start creating wealth for our clients.
Why,
Yeah, I mean-
part of our listing presentation with our clients is actually, hey, is this a possibility for you to keep it? And obviously, I know that probably cuts down on some of the listings that we take, yet if we build wealth for them, they tell more people.
Oh, sure.
Why couldn't we all have this in our business planning, 2020 business planning calendar, that we'll do a hold workshop? The whole content is already created for us on KW Connect.
Oh,
I just put Jana's contact information in the chat for panelists and attendees. If anybody.
Yeah, so would we like to challenge ourselves to get that on the calendar in the first quarter?
yeah,
Bring it.
you'll be scheduling that, Jenny. I'm
You
calling
guys
you.
are so easy. You're like, okay.
You're in charge of scheduling.
For real.
I love it. Okay, so this is toward the end, and I just think this is a great wrap up. It all comes down to this, page 307, 4 simple things. Get it for less, maximize your cash flow, avoid taxes, or at least reduce or delay them, and increase your return on investment. Is that just the summary of being a good investor?
Keep
It
it
is.
simple. Keep it simple. Keep your focus and avoid getting lost in the labyrinth of complexity. Yes.
I think something to maybe talk on a little deeper though too, it's a big deal, is the different types of financing, the different concepts of financing. I think those are really huge, and I didn't know all of
Crazy.
them.
Jess, that Freddie Mac loan that we did, it is like literally the most obscure loan. Nobody knows about it. Every one of my investor clients has never heard of it before. I just
And
stumbled upon a guy that is a lender, and his main office is in Memphis, but he's in Nashville. And he's like, hey, have you ever heard of this loan? This might be an option. It's got to be a $1 million balance. So there's certain stipulations on it, and can't be above a $5 million balance or $6 million balance. But it's like a really obscure loan that is I mean, we shopped it to like 7 banks around town when the first time we did it. And I mean, people were offering us 10% down instead of 15 or 20 or 25% down. And even with everything, they couldn't touch this loan.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, look at
I
page
can send a link to it
272
if you guys need
real
it.
quick, guys, because I think this is one that's important for people thinking
Yeah.
and investing and teaching people how to invest differently and think differently. I just did a quick video on Facebook about it because we're going to do a couple investor seminars to try to help. This is great for people even that have been thinking about dabbling in, whether it's, grandparents that want to build wealth for their grandkids and leave a legacy for them, or maybe they want to set up something so that their kids can pay for college. Like, this is a way that they can do it without selling those homes too. But from owner financing, on 272, they talk about the ways. It's owner financing is an option, assumptions, wraps, lease options, private seconds, and syndication. So the owner financing is where the seller carries the mortgage for you. Assumptions, that means taking the responsibility for the seller's mortgage when this is allowed by the seller's mortgage lender. So why would this be good? Think about now, like interest rates are really good right now, but years ago they were about 6.5%, sometimes a little higher. So if you could assume an FHA loan, if it's an assumable loan, because that was a first-time homebuyer loan, as agents, are we even going out for our clients and asking those listing agents to check with the sellers, like, hey, can you just check, is their loan an FHA loan and is it assumable? What's their current interest rate? That's
Well,
a great way to broker a deal.
For
Well, and
sure.
we haven't even dealt with that, right? When in our careers probably, but at some point that's going to be really important with all these low interest rates for VA and FHA.
When
Yeah.
interest rates go up to 10 or 12%, assumable loans are going to be really, really important. If you, Gary, I think when he was talking back in like 1983 or late 70s, it was like anywhere from 12 to 17%. I mean, it was basically a credit card payment.
Yeah.
And so they had to get very creative.
Well, when
Can
you
you
think
imagine
about it,
having
though, like,
to sell properties at 13 or 14 in early 80s? That's what all of our parents, if they bought properties, that's what they were paying.
when I started in 04, it was like 6.5%, I think. I
I was,
remember that.
my first one was like 6.5, and my second on it was like 7.25 or
Right. So
6.6. I mean, it
when
was,
you think about it, if it even goes down to 5 or 4%, like some people who don't have the best credit, if they can buy and assume that loan that's at 4 or 3.5%, they're still saving. They say with a change in interest rates, if they go up by 1%, your buying power goes down by 10%. So imagine the savings you can have if your interest rate gets changed that much lower. So how can we think differently?
it
Well,
doesn't seem
and-
like that big of a deal until you look at like, all right, 5% interest on $1 million or 4% interest, or 4% interest on $1 million or 5%, and you can only afford 900,000.
So how do you think you could go about this owner finance term? Would this be like, I mean, why would that be valuable, and or how would you find those people that are willing to sell?
There's a ton of them.
Yeah.
You just ask, you start and you just ask the question, is this something you're willing to, I think a lot of people don't understand owner financing from the sake of a title company or an attorney's office can easily come up with an amortization chart, and you just negotiate the terms, and some it may be more applicable than taking the money now. They want the interest from it,
It's almost
Take
like
into
a reverse.
consideration somebody that owns more than 10 properties and they can't get financing, but they have the cash flow, then they just go to people and say, hey, look, the bank won't allow me to buy more properties based on the limit. And that limit might not be as like, it's not there as much as it used to be. But I mean, there's a lot of people that once you own 6 or 10 properties, whatever the number was, you can't get financing. So you either got to go to a hard money lender or you've got to go to owner financing, or you've got to do some assumable mortgage, or you got to do something
Equity lines of credit.
yeah. But even then, the equity lines of credit might not be, you might be able to go do owner financing at 5% if the interest rate is, let's just say 4 to 4.5. And that's still cheaper than certainly cheaper than hard money lender or something, somebody
Jennie,
else.
we can role play that. That's really easy.
Well, no, I just remember in the days when buyer financing was was tougher, and that was always the conversation around owner finance, but no one was educated on what that meant. So like as a listing agent, they didn't know how you would do that. And in the end, it always, because buyers would say, oh, I just want to owner finance. That's all I can do right now. And it was really to the benefit of the seller, because most ended up not being able to
Yeah, they
work
get all
out.
that interest plus
right?
they get the property back.
Yeah. So the seller's in the winning situation there, right?
I think owner financing for the most part is typically for a more savvy, sophisticated investor. Not always. I mean, there's just certain certain situations that come up that might,
You might even say like, hey, you could do a portion of the loan owner finance. Like, let's say I wanted to buy the duplex, right? And I didn't want to use any of my funds. Well, I could essentially take the portion I would have put down as a down payment, but do a private owner finance loan on that portion and use that instead as a down payment.
Yeah.
And do that as a private loan.
I owner financed like a small piece of my office building. And I did it because I didn't want to, they were going to give me a better rate on like the last $100,000, which I could just pay off, but it's like so low that it's not, like I don't have a reason to pay it off.
You'll make more money investing that somewhere else.
Yeah. So like, yeah.
I always love how Gary throws in.
And they were willing to do it. And I was like, done. I mean, it's at like 3%.
You freeze sometimes. It's funny.
Is that Jenny?
I always like how Gary always makes sure to throw in something relating to 6 personal perspectives and your primary asset section toward the end, you know, protecting your time through leverage, protect your assets, be learning based. We never get away from that, and be accountable. So what are some of your ahas in that section?
I like in the gray area on 301, give 10% of your gross income to buying investment properties and spend 1/10 of your time each week watching your money and your property. I agree with most of that. I don't know. I think in general, I think you probably, if you really want to do it at a big level, I think you got to give more than 10% of your income, maybe not to just investment properties, but just investments in general. I think you've got to put more like 20 or 25%. So, but I like that, what it says.
Yeah, so I feel like whether we are the investors or we're just educating ourselves on helping our clients think this way, just going through this material has been super helpful for me. What do you guys think?
I think you have to also be an investor to educate your clients at a high level on this. Like, I'm not saying you have to, but
Get in the game.
I think it's hard to be like a real estate agent and not own a house. Like, and I understand maybe starting off like that's different, but it's hard to work with investors if you don't know the numbers. And you can regurgitate it and kind of BS it as much as you want, but until you really are like dealing with your own rental property, you don't really fully understand.
Well, here's a tip that I've been doing for a while, and it really, to me, it shows who is serious and who's not. So if I have a relationship with someone, they say, Tony, I want to invest in real estate. Can I pick your brain? The first thing I do is I send them this book, and I'll Amazon it to their house. And then I follow up a month later and see if they even started reading it. And then if they have, or if they're like, I'm halfway through or whatever, I'm really waiting to hear what their criteria is, because at the end of the day, that's the people that I want to work with, or people that know what they want so I can help them go find it, and not the clientele that's like, I want a good deal, you know. And you just got to understand like what you're looking for so we can help you find it. And those are the people we want to spend our time with as well. So I think it's pretty cool that strategy's worked pretty well for me on separating, you know, the people that are for real and the people that are just talking.
People that want a good deal, I love those people. Yeah, I just want a good deal. Really?
All right, well, let's role play that. Tony, that was brilliant, because we may get those calls and we may be just so excited that it's a person who has cash and wants to buy, and they're so generic. So what does that sound like for you guys when you get those calls? What are your first qualifying questions?
Well, so for me, when I'm relating it to what I just said, it's typically someone I know pretty well. It's not just someone randomly on the phone, but depending on what they're trying to do, I would use this exact strategy. So,
Yeah.
so tell me, Jenny, what makes you so excited about investing in real estate?
Oh, just build my wealth.
Okay, building wealth, great. Yeah, it's a great way to do it. It's actually the number one way to build wealth in America. So I would love to be a part of that. Here's what I'm going to do. Let me get your address. So I'm gonna actually mail you the best real estate book you could ever read, in my opinion. And I think if you learn this at a high level, we can figure out what you're looking for, so we can help you go find it. So what is your address?
Well, wait, isn't that what you're just supposed to do for me?
Well, basically, we wouldn't be able to just tell you a good deal unless we know what your criteria is. So this book's going to lay out a game plan on real estate investing and have you think about some things you probably never even thought of. So if you take the time to do this, I'll take the time to make sure we can find you the right properties. But it all starts with the knowledge. And this book here, I believe, is going to be the best one for you to get that knowledge up front, to know what you're looking for. So would you read that for me?
You are, I mean, I don't know. I want to spend my money like in the next 30 days.
Okay. Well, we might not be the best fit, Jenny, if I don't know what you're looking for. Can you tell me, just as an example, what kind of return do you want per month on your property?
I don't know. We can stop the role play,
Yeah.
but I do love that. I mean,
Just ask more questions.
Yeah, just keep asking questions.
Do you want multifamily, single family? I mean, you go a million directions with it, but I haven't had any clients that have we're giving them a free gift. So even if they're not going to read it, they've never told me no.
Yeah.
I haven't had anyone say, I'm not going to read it.
I know Jess is the script master. So what do you say, Jess?
Josh, do you want to be a financial planner and script with me?
Sure.
Okay, great. Ring, ring.
What?
Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Josh, it's Jess Starr from Star Realty Group at Keller Williams. How are you?
Good. Who is this?
Oh, it's Jess Starr. You know who it is. I'm so happy we closed your house on Ellsworth just a few months ago. And I was actually just giving you a quick buzz because we're doing this book club with the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And I couldn't help but think of you. The funny thing is, I know you run into people every day and you're handling their wealth and you take that seriously. Am I right? Yep. Great. So I've got this book and I've read it and it's really inspired me to actually make some serious investments and make some changes in the way I save my money and the way I fund my personal life and my business. And I have this feeling that it's going to do the same for you and for your clients. And I'd love to do this and send you a copy of the book just so that you have it. I think it'd be a great opportunity for you to give it to other clients of yours, because I think it's going to be a way for you to create residual wealth and income for them. Would that be all right? Sure. Awesome. Now, the only thing I'm going to ask you is that once you're done reading it, because you're going to love it, I'd love to just get together for a cup of coffee and talk about it, see what questions you have, because I have some ideas and I'd love to pick your brain on a couple things. Do you know anything about REITs? What's a REIT? Great. So let's get together. I've got some time available Friday at 8.
Real estate investment trust or no, just kidding. Perfect.
So,
love to have coffee with you.
Great.
Yes.
You're an awesome-minded big thinker, and that's why I'm reaching out to a couple of my favorite business people, and I want to get this book in their hands because I think it's that valuable. Please make sure that once you read it, you give it to only your top clients, because it's a way that they're going to build wealth when, we're watching the market. It's not doing the greatest things now. And when that market shifts, things like investing in real estate is going to really help them, and they're going to appreciate you for it. The only thing I ask is that, you keep me in mind when they're looking for a great agent. Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect. I'll see you then.
I do that.
Can I have coffee?
Yeah. So I did that since we've been reading this. I've had
cool.
appointments.
That's great.
And the good thing is,
If
I
it's the
thought
right,
what was going to happen was they were going to call their clients, which they are starting to do. But what's happening even more? So I started getting referrals from them for their clients. But what's happening more is they're like, hey, Jess, find me this. I need this. You're right. I need to do it more.
I think financial advisors are like potentially the best referral sources for us. And I think that most agents are so transactional that they don't think about it.
Yep.
I will say this, it's either the right financial advisor that really gets the big picture, or they're in a little bit of a small mindset where they're like, oh, well, that potentially takes away from me investing their money. So you will get one of those two, things. And if it's the right financial advisor, they totally get that real estate is a part of the big picture of the wealth building for their clients. And if it's the right person, they probably own investment properties also.
They do.
Not the right financial advisor, and they're just like totally putting them in fee-based shit, frankly. They're wanting to do more of that and not necessarily help them really build wealth.
Well, actually, a couple of them, one of them I added to the group to watch this, and he's been watching.
Oh, good.
Hi.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Hey.
How are you? He would probably agree with my statement then.
Mhm.
So,
No, he's awesome.
I love it. Tony, you have any final thoughts?
So I do. So the definition of a millionaire is a person whose assets are worth $1 million or more. I think, we get off track on what the definition of that is, and it's assets. So something everyone can do, no matter where you are right now, is create a net worth worksheet just on, what your assets are and what's your liabilities, and simply track it on a monthly basis to start, or a weekly basis. And I think just by doing so, you're gonna definitely try to get out of debt if you're in debt, and just be more purposeful about making decisions. For example, when you get ready to buy that car, and you guys know I'm a car guy, it really starts out and you think, well, this is a depreciating asset. Should I do this, or should I double down and hire another person, or should I take this money and reinvest it here? So I think it just gives you a lot of clarity. So I think everyone can do that, and I'd highly suggest it.
yeah.
And look
Also,
at
if you don't want to carry it around with you, you can just, I just moved all my stuff over to Personal Capital app. It's a net worth app, and it does your budgeting too. It's not as good as Mint on the budgeting side, but Mint isn't really set up for net worth. And you can put everything in there. You can put your real estate, you can put your life insurance stuff, you can put your, if you have any kind of accounts, Northwestern Mutual, whatever it is.
funds too.
Yeah, it puts everything in there. It puts all your bank accounts, all your everything, and it shows you regular, like you can log in as much as you want and see your net worth.
What's that called, Josh?
Personal Capital.
Okay.
There's also one called, I think it's eMoney Advisor, and that one is like our financial planner pays for it for us.
Yeah.
That's part of him.
Well, for the people that want a free app, Mint is good for budgeting, and Personal Capital is really good for the net worth side. So, and both of them are equally as important, because if you don't know how to budget, you're not going to have any net worth. So there you go.
And
Well, awesome.
it's just like we trim our profit and loss statements, just like you said, you're going through your cell phone bill. I've canceled cable because I'm like, we're not watching it. We're doing like, and go through and get something else if you have to have it.
Most people have like Amazon Prime, which is also TV. They have Netflix. They have regular TV. They're spending like we don't watch enough TV to pay $20 a month. Like,
I'm so cheap. I'm like, give me your Audible account.
Yeah, I know.
Not
I'll
cheap.
give that to you one day. Did I give you that?
Guys are
Did I give you
jerks.
that?
The only thing that bothers me, Jess, is that also is our Amazon account.
I
So
didn't
there's,
think about that.
yeah.
I only want your books. I don't care about your groceries, Jenny.
Mine?
Well, I appreciate you guys. I am super excited. For sure, we'll all get to see each other again soon. I get to see Tony next week in Florida.
Jenny, have you sold the, you told everybody live last week that you were selling yeah.
She
Did
didn't
it?
officially say that. She said she was thinking about stuff.
No, she committed. Were you on the last call?
Yes.
Oh,
You
Tony was not.
putting
Tony
it.
was not.
Yes, it's going on the market.
Are you having, is there going to be large, massive amounts of FOMO?
Maybe.
Yes, and
It's okay.
Wow.
Are you gonna buy something else though?
Yeah, eventually. Yes.
Stuff at the store. Do that.
1031.
Which
I
data?
don't even know what you're talking about, but I'm going to say 1031 that.
I'll tell you about it next week, Tony.
All right.
I appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for all your knowledge. This has been so much fun, and
Wow.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
You guys.